All right, let's get into some real stuff about circles. Okay, so we're going to find the area and circumference, which is, we'll get to that in a second, but that's the goal of today. So we're going to say that I can find the area and circumference of a circle. All right, so maybe you guys have heard of this number called pi. Pi just represents this special number, and it is the ratio, bringing it back, of circumference to diameter on a circle. So circumference is basically the perimeter, the distance around the outside of a circle. So if I take the measurement of the distance around the outside to the ratio compared to the distance across that circle, that ratio will always reduce to this fraction 22 over 7, which we use 3.14 because it's actually a really long number. Like, it goes on forever long, like legitimately forever. So 22 divided by 7. So I don't know how to type that in every time, right? So we just use 3.14 for approximating, so not exactly. Anyway, so there's two different types of answers. There's an exact answer, which you leave pi in that answer. It's a special symbol that represents that number. Or an approximated answer uses that number 3.14. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, so that's pi, 3.14. So the circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle, like the perimeter, basically. And there's two different formulas, one that uses the diameter and one that uses the radius. So the circumference is equal to pi, that 3.14, times the diameter, or since the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius, you could use that. 2 times pi times the radius. So if you're given the diameter, use this formula. If you're given the radius, use this formula. All right, so let's get into like the actual mathing part, right? I don't have my real calculator. I just got my phone, so I have to hang in with me. All right, so this says find the circumference of the circle. Write your answer as both an exact, so leaving pi in the answer, and an approximated number using 3.14, rounded to the nearest hundredth. So rounding, super important, since that pi number, since it technically goes on forever, we're gonna have to round. That's okay, we'll make it through. Anywho, I'm getting distracted. All right, so here, this 11 centimeters, this is a radius, right? It goes halfway across, not the whole way across. So I'm gonna use this formula. Always start by writing your formula. My circumference, the distance around the outside, is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. So all I'm gonna do, so I equals C equals 2 times pi, and instead of r, I'm gonna substitute in what my radius is, which is 11. Okay, and I'm always gonna multiply what I can first. Pi is gonna be the last thing I'm gonna multiply, so I'm gonna do 2 times 11. So my circumference is equal, 2 times 11 is 22, times pi, And this is what your exact answer looks like. So you'll have one number, like 22, times pi. So this is the pi symbol from up here, okay? So my exact answer is 22 pi, and it's centimeters, okay? So that's what it looks like to leave pi in the answer. Or, if I keep going, instead of pi, I'm going to use its approximation, 3.14, and I can do that. 22 times 3.14. Is 69.08. And that one's already done in the hundredths place, so I don't need to do anything else. So this is the approximated answer, right? Because pi goes on forever, and we're shortening what that number is. So this isn't going to be quite exactly the same, but it's an approximation. Centimeters. So an exact answer leaves pi in the answer, and an approximated number, you're going to multiply by 3.14. All right, find the circumference of the circle, right? Your answer is both exact and approximated number rounded to the nearest hundredth. A pizza has a diameter of 16 inches. So since I'm given diameter, I'm going to use this formula. Circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So pi times, instead of d, I'm going to put 16, because that's what my diameter is equal to. Okay, and I'm just going to flip-flop them. That's 16 pi. That's already done. That's my exact answer. I can't do anything else to make this simpler. So that's my exact answer. So 16 pi inches. Okay, but to do an approximated answer, instead of pi, I replace it with its approximation of 3.14. Is 50.24. And again, it already stops in the hundredths place. I don't need to round it. So the distance around the outside, if I was a tiny little ant and I walked around the outside of that pizza, I would have walked 50.24 inches. Okay, so find the circumference of the circle. A pool has a radius of 10.5 feet. Right, your answer is both exact and approximated, rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, so sometimes it helps me to draw a circle. And it says it's a radius of 10.5 feet. So from the center to the outside, it's going to be 10.5. I did that kind of small. So since I'm given a radius, I'm going to use this formula. My circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. But this time, instead of r, I'm going to replace it with what my radius is, 10.5. Then again, we simplify what we can. So I can automatically do 2 times 10.5. Is 21. Times pi is 21 pi. That would be my exact answer. We're talking about feet. Okay, but to get my approximated answer, instead of pi, I'm going to do 3.14. So times 3.14 is 65.94. So that would be my approximated answer. I need to round it to the nearest tenth, which is 1 after the decimal. Look next door. That is 4 or less, so it gets to rest. So 65.9 feet. So if I was walking around that pool, I would have walked 65.9 feet. Okay. So it says find the circumference, exact and approximated, rounded to the nearest tenth. So this one is the whole way across. So that is the diameter. Okay, so I'm going to use this formula. C equals pi d. But instead of d for diameter, I'm going to replace it with the number that my diameter measures, which is 18.8. Okay, and I can do a flippity flop. We always put the number in front. So that would be 18.8 pi. That's my exact answer. Because I can't do anything else. Okay, but for an approximated answer, instead of pi, I'm going to use its value, 3.14. Which is 59.032. Okay, round it to the nearest tenth. So I find my place, I look next door. 3 is 4 or less, so that 0 gets to rest. So 59.0 inches. All right, so I'm gonna have you pause there, go to the homework for this one, and questions 1 through 5 are all about circumference. So pause here, go answer the circumference sections, questions, come back, learn about area, then do those.